Hello everybody, and welcome back to Boss Battles of Wraeclast, the somewhat comprehensive guide to the various bosses in Path of Exile 2. In today's episode we are taking on the Devourer, and the Devourer can be located within the mud burrows on the eastern side of Clearfell very shortly after you enter the zone. So when you enter Clearfell from the encampment, if you stick to the right hand wall, very shortly you'll find the entrance to the mud burrows, which is a cave entrance, and there's also a waypoint right next to that cave entrance as well, so I would recommend going near the waypoint to activate it, so it gives you a nice quick way back to where you left off before defeating the boss. Now with the Devourer, I believe this quest is completely optional. You don't have to do this quest. There is a quest from Renly attached to killing the Devourer, and it does award a support gem, your first of the playthrough, so I would recommend doing it for newer players, and I'd probably even recommend doing it on Cruel if you haven't had that many level 2 support gems, because I believe in Cruel it will award a level 2 support gem. But just so you're aware, you don't have to take this boss on, you can skip it completely if you want to have a quick playthrough. And with the Devourer as well, it really is up to you whether you take on the Devourer second or Bearer of the Rotten Pack second. It's whichever boss you find first or whichever you prefer doing first. Bearer is a zone boss, whereas the Devourer is a quest boss. So technically you can skip both, but I'd recommend doing both given that they award pretty nice rewards for defeating them. Okay, so the mud burrows can be a bit of a maze, so make sure you're keeping an eye open for a checkpoint, and then very shortly after the checkpoint you'll notice a very large empty room. Not this one, these ones have skeletons. In the middle of that empty room you'll notice a vile nest marker on the minimap, and then the opposite side of the room the Devourer will burst up out of the ground. I believe it should be this room here, yes it is. Okay, so the Devourer has a variety of different attacks, and one of those attacks does change depending on whether you're stood in melee or at range. That is his basic attack. When you're stood at range, as you can see, he's kind of spitting globs of blood at me, and when you're stood in melee, he will swipe at you with his claws, and he will try to bite you as well. You can block these attacks, or you can dodge roll out of the way pretty easily. He does also have a heavy attack when you're stood in melee range, which is a head slam into the ground, shortly followed by a pool of poison he'll vomit up. So make sure you avoid the head slam because it does hit pretty hard, and then also avoid the pool of green poison on the floor afterwards. When you stood at range, for the first 25% of his health, he'll just spit blood at you, so it's pretty easy for ranged. Melee have a bit of a harder job because we have to avoid the heavy attack. But once he hits about 75% health, he will gain a few new abilities. One thing you'll notice throughout the first phase of the fight, he is burrowing under the ground and leaving sections of his body when he moves. He does pop up in different places in the fight, and then once he hits 75% he will do a kind of special burrow attack where you'll see this red mark on the floor. He'll then burst up shortly afterwards and summon these kind of wormy bug creatures. Make sure you take them out, there's about 4 or 5 of them every time. After he burrows about 4 or 5 times you will notice his tail does appear, and that tail does act independently of the head. It will slam the ground if you're nearby and summon more of those bugs, so make sure you avoid the tail. If you're a ranged player, he does also gain a ranged version of the poison spit that he does, and you can stand behind one of the sections of his body to block that attack. You'll see that his body section is currently glowing green from that poison. I don't believe it does any damage to him. I believe he's resistant to that poison damage, but it does block the poison if you stand behind that section of body, so you can avoid that attack completely. You just won't be able to attack him back during that part. He will also keep the abilities from his first 25% of his health. He will still slam the ground with his head, and he will also vomit up that pool of poison. So again, melee players, make sure you're avoiding that head slam. And after about 50% of his health, he will also gain a second version of the ranged poison spit, in where he will kind of spray it across the room like he just did. And he will also have another version of that spit where he will spit a stream of vomit straight at you. Again, melee players, you can block it completely, just hold your shield up and it's nice and easy, or dodge roll out of the way, and you can avoid both of them pretty easily. You can just dodge roll around him and get behind him, and that will make it nice and easy. Ranged players, make sure you're continually dodge rolling to get out of the way, or strafing, that will work as well. One thing I'd recommend, don't bother attacking the tail section. I don't believe it takes any damage. I have tried a couple of times in previous fights and it doesn't take any damage from attacks, so I just avoid the tail section completely. And also, after the boss dies, that tail section can still slam. So make sure if the tail is still active after the boss is dead, stay away from it. It will still try and slam you. And that is the Devourer. He will drop a level 2 uncut skill gem, so you can level up one of your skills or gain a new one, and you will have completed the quest. The game will also prompt you to go back to town by opening a portal. So yeah, that's pretty much everything to do with the Devourer. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode.